Mathara at CrowSong Lodge, and I'm back again today with another video. Today I wanted to talk about something that I have been kind of stewing over for several months now. It's kind of an argument that I've seen a lot on different social media sites and discussions that are going on in different community spaces in the pagan community, and it's really, really frustrating to me. And it's this debate between kind of rigid traditional practices in the religion versus unverified personal gnosis, right? UPGs. That's what the term is, I guess, going around the internet. And so what an unverified personal gnosis is information that is your personal experience of a god or a spirit or an elemental or something that you learned through your personal experience and your relationship with those entities or energies or whatever that hasn't been verified by a ton of people or some super acclaimed authority on the subject. There isn't a book out there saying that that information is true, and so you're the only one saying it, or it's not commonly accepted information. And when we're talking about a religious or spiritual practice, this isn't exactly science. We're not exactly working with that same info. We're not working with that whole, like, it has to be verified. We're going to take it into the, scientific process and verify it over and over and over again. We're not going into a system where we're expecting things to have historical documentation. We can't go into an archaeological record and see what was true of the gods, what their thoughts are, what their experiences are. And so we have this issue where sometimes when somebody comes into a space and they say, this is my relationship or experience of the god, other people are like, yeah, you're full of shit. Or if you're not giving the god, this particular offering, you're doing your religion wrong. You're never going to get there. You're a noob. Never mind, you have no validity in this community. And this is a real problem. And we have some people who might not There are some people in the pagan community who aren't entirely connected with reality, who seem to be a little bit more in their own personal fantasy world than the rest of us are. And where that line is pretty fluid, because some people are going to look at me and say the same thing, and some people are going to look at the entire community and be like, they're all nuts. So where that line is going to vary from person to person. But each of us has at least one person we've run into where we're like, yeah, I'm not sure. The issue is in how we treat those people and the whole general attitude of that's not in a book, so it obviously is bullshit. So let's step back for a minute and talk about the gods and what the life of a god must look like, right? So we have our books, our historical records, our myths, our oral tales, our ballads and whatnot that have been passed down centuries and centuries and centuries. And almost universally, when we're talking about most pagan traditions, these stories that we're told, the myths and the genesis of the gods, are thousands of years old. And so when we're only willing to acknowledge those stories as real and the only kind of experiences that the gods have had, we've kind of frozen them in that time period. Like, they have had thousands of years since those stories took place. And it's kind of wild to think that they haven't been doing anything since then. Like, assuming that Zeus hasn't been up to any shenanigans since the last myth said he had been, and you know what kind of shenanigans I'm talking about, is really far-fetched. Like, I expecting him to just stop interacting with mortals in any way, like he hasn't interfered with any events since then, is really not in keeping with what we know about him. So, to me, it seems completely credible that there are people out there who are still having experiences with him, and that he's probably still up to his same games that he's always been up to. We're just not hearing about them now. Because the world is a much bigger place. The community is not as close-knit as it used to be. Maybe people don't even realize it's him anymore because they haven't even heard of him. So he's able to get away with his shenanigans as far as the public is concerned now. But the idea that he has completely stopped interacting with people is just wild to me. It's absolutely inconceivable. And so that's where you end up intersecting with the whole unverified personal gnosis issue, right? Because then when you run into someone who says, oh yeah, I have had a conversation with Zeus and he tells me that he's really into Cheez-Its now, like, what are you to say? And maybe Zeus is a god that you work with too, and when you spoke to him, he says that no, he's still really into grapes, and that's his thing. And so now you have a conflict, right? According to the books, I don't know what the books say. Well, I know what the books say. Zeus is into it. It's not food. But say the books do say that he's into a certain kind of food. And then you have a personal experience where in a meditation or a prayer or during some kind of spell or ritual or something, Zeus came to you and he said that he was into grapes. And then another person had a similar experience that he told them he prefers his offerings to be Cheez-Its. And how do you reconcile all this information, right? So, I mean, it's entirely possible that one or more of you is wrong. 1, 2, or even the original source is wrong. It could be that some days Zeus likes grapes, and some days he likes Cheez-Its. Or it could be that when he hangs out with you, he likes those Cheez-Its. But when he hangs out with this other person, he feels more like grapes. So I guess what I really get frustrated at is that the gods are very much like people, and so we don't give them the flexibility a lot of times in the community to act like people. We're taught and we learn that they're like humans. They have personalities and conflicts and lessons, and they grow and they develop, and they have preferences and flaws, and that at least in the past they had changed and evolved, and then for some reason at some point in time we expect that to have stopped. And we don't give them that flexibility to like continue living their god lives. Like, we just assume they're just in this frozen limbo plane or something where they're just stored until we need to interact with them or something. And it's so very weird to me that we don't let the gods just continue living their lives. Like, it's so weird to think that Zeus is not out there like driving some silver Corvette trying to pick chicks up on the Las Vegas Strip or something, because that, in my brain, that's just, I can't imagine he hasn't done that recently. So, I mean, I don't know that. I haven't seen him doing it, but I just kind of assume that's something he's done at least at some point since Corvettes were invented. So, it's so weird that we keep them frozen in this time. And so, there's this weird gatekeeping aspect of the community where it's like, if you're in the community and you're just like, I have this experience of Zeus and it can't be verified in a book, well then you're shunned or derided or ridiculed or something. And that's so weird to me. Like, our pagan community is so weird and we're so willing to like accept all these outrageous things. And I think one of the things that I've really learned, especially in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, is that people have really, especially in regards to our spiritual and magical practices, we give way too much authority to authors. I've read a lot of books in the last few years, especially where I read the information in them and I'm just like, this is incorrect information. You know, especially when it comes to stuff that happened historically, like when they're talking about the genesis of a faith, or the way things used to be in society, or like the way things happened historically, and I know they're false. You know, I know where that legend came from. I know when people started spreading that story around, because that happened within my lifetime. And so I'm reading these stories and I'm like, that's just a rumor. That's just an internet rumor. That never happened. You didn't do this research. And so recognizing the authors are just human. They're not like this weird infallible source. And that we're talking about this weird nebulous topic like spirituality and religion, and like spirits and gods and stuff are not singular. Some of them can even occur in 2 different places at the same time. You know, they can bilocate and transgress across time, and they're not limited by the laws of physics. So to really limit this, like freeze them in time according to like the Nordic sagas or something, and like they can never evolve past that, is so weird. And so I think as a community we just need to kind of chill out about that. Learning the historical information is super good, and it's a great foundation, but after that you still have to be a little flexible. You know, the value of a personal relationship is really important, but you also have to respect other people's personal relationships. You don't have to take their relationships as gospel, mind you, but like respecting that they're doing their thing over there and that's working for them. That's just the basic tenets of respect. Like, you're doing your thing over there and that seems to be working for you, so that's cool, you keep at it. That's all respect is. It doesn't mean that you have to buy into it. It doesn't mean you have to copy it. It doesn't mean you have to emulate it. It doesn't mean you have to let them do what they're doing to you. It just means you're like, that seems to be working for you, good on ya. So that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about with gatekeeping the gods in the pagan community. I hope that I made some kind of sense, because I know I threw a lot at you this time, but if I didn't, say so in the comments. If you have something to add, say it in the comments. If you have questions or any other thoughts, like, go ahead and toss it in there. And yeah, absolutely, let's have conversations here, guys. I will talk to you in the next video. Alright? Bye.